What's up, everyone? Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before we jump into everything, of course, shout out to sponsors of the show, Ledn.io. This is where you can use your Bitcoin for a couple of different things. One is to obtain a Canadian or US dollar loan using your Bitcoin as collateral. And the second of which is a Bitcoin savings account where you can earn interest on your Bitcoin paid in Bitcoin. For either of those services, check out the link below. And if you decide to get a loan, they'll actually credit you with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin into your account. And secondly, if you're into Bitcoin, then of course, privacy should be of the utmost importance. One of the things I use is NordVPN. This is something that I can run on my phone and my computer, multiple devices with a single account. And essentially it helps mask your IP address, it encrypts your browsing data, and it has the added benefit of unlocking geo-blocked content. So if you want to check that out, there's a link down below. You can get 75% off. It ends up being about $3 a month. And with that, let's dive into the news. So there has been a lot of talk over the last, couple of years really about Bitcoin futures markets, where you can speculate on the future price of Bitcoin, whether you think it's going to be high or low. Well, they do have products like that out there. Unfortunately, those are settled in cash. So at the end of the day, no Bitcoin changes hands. Well, that changed as of today. LedgerX has launched its physical Bitcoin futures. Now, this is before Bakkt was able to do it. Bakkt was anticipated to be the first company that would be able to come out and do this. Well, LedgerX has launched as of today. Today, this is available. So US citizens can now purchase physically settled Bitcoin futures contracts on the LedgerX platform, which is called Omni. So essentially what's happening here is if you're in the US, you can sign up for an account. You can actually deposit your own Bitcoin onto their platform, which is something not seen in traditional markets thus far. And you can then participate in the futures markets using your own Bitcoin. Afterwards, when a contract is settled, well, again, it settles in actual Bitcoin. So somebody can utilize this and actually fully bypass the banking system. There's no need to use the banks whatsoever. It's funded and settled entirely in Bitcoin. So they did not only beat Bakkt to the punch here, but they also beat TD Ameritrade. They are both competitors in the space that have products that are, somewhere on the sidelines waiting to be launched. So there's a couple things here. Let's see here. So this quote here from one of the people from LedgerX: not only are they delivered physically in a sense that our customers can get Bitcoin after the futures expire, but also they can deposit Bitcoin to trade in the first place. Cash settled is cash in and cash out. We're Bitcoin in and Bitcoin out. So some of their competitors here are waiting on a couple of things. Now, TD Ameritrade already has approval from the CFTC. There's just no word on when they plan on launching, whereas Bakkt is actually waiting on the approval of a trust charter from the New York Department of Financial Services. Now, if that gets granted, then it could be just a few weeks before they launch their product. But yeah, kudos to LedgerX for getting out the door first. And I guess we'll have to see what this does to Bitcoin price. Again, the beautiful thing here is that actual Bitcoin is trading hands. It's not just people speculating on price without having to touch the actual asset. In this case, you actually have your hands on Bitcoin. So as does the institution. So let's move on here. Not exactly Bitcoin, but it relates to it. The Fed is cutting rates. Yes, I said cutting rates. So they cut their rate by a quarter point just the other day. And the markets seem to have reacted. The markets have gone down from there, but mostly it was interesting to see the reaction from Bitcoin Twitter. Namely in that when it comes to interest rates, this is kind of the ammunition that the Fed has to combat a poor economy. However, the economy right now, at least in terms of the stock market and assets like that, are doing just fine. In fact, they're pretty much near all-time highs. And they're already starting to cut rates. Now, we should take into account that they have raised rates in tiny, tiny steps for the past few years here since 2015, but still, it's only at now with this cut between 2 and 2.25%, and this is pretty much still historic lows for the interest rate at the Fed. So it doesn't really bode well for the economy moving forward. There's a lot of pundits that are forecasting a recession next year. But I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out. Either way, it takes away a little bit of ammunition should there be a recession, because, I mean, you can still only cut rates by 2% before you're back at 0% rates. Then you essentially have to look at two options: negative interest rates or printing money, quantitative easing. I wouldn't be surprised to see more QE down the road, but they've got a little ways to go as far as cutting rates. But yeah, it's getting dangerously close to the point where you start to think, well, what more can be done if you want to kind of keep pushing this market forward? Again, it's been 10 years of the longest bull market in U.S. history. And I don't know how much longer the facade can be kept up. And thus, I think some people may be hedging their bets with Bitcoin. But I guess we'll see. Moving on here, actually just in relation to this, when it comes to the rate of inflation, that is often measured with something called CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. However, that is not exactly a great metric. They leave out some key things in the measurement of inflation there that I personally think are quite important, one of which is related to energy and the other which is related to food. And those are two things that people need every single day of their lives. Now, the stated reason for leaving things like those off are the volatility of those types of commodities, but yeah. Anyways, take a look at this article. I've included it below. It's a few years back. It's about 5 years old, but still some good points in there when it comes to inflation and CPI. Moving on, more government-related stuff. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is planning to run Bitcoin and Ethereum nodes, as well as a variety of other blockchains. Now, they've not exactly stated why they're doing this. Why are they deciding to run nodes all of a sudden? So some of the blockchains that they're looking at running nodes for include, obviously, Bitcoin and Ethereum, as I stated, but Bitcoin Cash, Stellar, Zcash, EOS, Neo, and XRP. So what could they be doing there? I mean, they state that it's to support its efforts to monitor risk, improve compliance, and inform commission policy with respect to digital assets. There's some speculation that more or less they just want to be blockchain snoops, and they want to bring in third party to keep tabs on what is happening on the blockchain. While the SEC doesn't really have any jurisdiction over Bitcoin, it could take a look at what's happening on the Bitcoin blockchain in relation to some of the other blockchains, in relation to crowdfunding, so on and so forth. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens here. Right now, it's essentially a big question mark, but it seems also a tad late. Like, if they were going to do something like this, I'm surprised they hadn't already started to do it just on their own. But yeah, I don't know. Government is slow, I suppose. Let's move on. Now, this is just a couple quick things that I saw today that I was kind of excited for, even though the first of which I don't have access to here in Canada yet, but Lolli. So Lolli is a company that allows you to install a plugin and use an app that gets you sats back on your purchases. So when you go and purchase something at, say, Safeway, or I'm not sure what all of their partners are. There's a lot of different merchants that they've teamed up with. But essentially, what you can do is you can make purchases with fiat, with your dollars, with your credit cards, with whatever, and then you can earn back Bitcoin paid out in sats. So that's pretty awesome. Well, they just teamed up with Udemy, which is basically online education courses that you can get, and they are offering you up to 18% Bitcoin back on online education courses at Udemy. So not only Bitcoin related courses, but really anything else you want to get your hands on. So really cool to see Lolli expanding, and I can't wait for them to be here in Canada so I can just start stacking sats with all of my purchases. I'll probably revert to using stuff like Lolli as opposed to cashback credit cards, because why stack fiat when you could stack sats? And further to that, we're going to check out this one here, Fold. Now, these guys, I've actually used their web app quite a bit, and mostly early on when I was first getting into Bitcoin. Actually, when I first got into Bitcoin in 2014, at the end of the year, there was a company that doesn't really exist anymore, but essentially they hired me to see if I could live on Bitcoin for an entire month, which I did. And they said that if I could try to use their service, awesome, but if I couldn't, then I could use any other means necessary to support myself and live on Bitcoin. And one of the workarounds that I found at the time was Fold. Now, at the time, what Fold was is it allowed you to convert Bitcoin into Starbucks gift cards, and then the remainder of the gift card, if it was unspent, you could convert it back into dollars, or sorry, not dollars, back into Bitcoin on your phone and have it sent back to your Bitcoin wallet. Well, there's been some new developments since then. One of which is they've added a whole bunch more services. Again, as at the time I said there was only Starbucks. Well, now they've got things like Amazon and Hotels.com and Target and Burger King and AMC and Macy's and Home Depot and Southwest Airlines. And there's a lot of stuff on there. And they've also implemented Lightning Network, because obviously on-chain fees, if you're getting a $5 gift card, don't really make sense. But if you are getting something like a $5 gift card and you're using Lightning Network and your on-chain fee is 1 Satoshi, then that makes a whole lot of sense. And not only that, but they've started to also give you sats back. Now, keep in mind here, what you're doing is you're spending Bitcoin and earning a percentage back. So you are spending Bitcoin. So keep that in mind, because you don't want to be down sats if that's your end game. But also, just to put this into context, I remember using this app back at the end of 2014, going into 2015, namely around the first month or two of 2015. And I can remember at one point going to Starbucks, and I'm pretty sure I ended up spending on a meal, like a couple coffees, and some food for myself and my at the time girlfriend, now wife. It pains me to say, but I'm pretty sure I spent about zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, even more, 0.15 Bitcoin, something like that, on a single date at Starbucks. To put that into context, if Bitcoin is around $10,000 right now, that's well over $1,000. I'm pretty sure it was 0.15. So yeah, $1,500 US on a Starbucks meal. So my lesson here to you is, if you utilize something like this, always replenish. So maybe what you might want to do is have your Bitcoin in your own wallet, and then you send over some sats when you need to do some spending, and you earn those sats back. But at the same time, you're replenishing by buying through whatever. If you're in the States, Cash App is pretty good. If you're here in Canada and you're Bitcoin only, you can hit up Bull Bitcoin. But either way, kind of a cool way to earn some sats back. And I actually gave them a shout out on Twitter, and I said, hey, it'll be great if you guys add a way to dump fiat and stack sats, to which they replied, that's coming soon. So I'm very excited to see that when it happens. It seems like there'll be a couple of different ways to stack more sats, and I will be on that train without a doubt. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've had a wonderful day. If you're new here, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share. Especially share. I want to get some more new viewers in here and build up everybody around. So invite anybody you like. And secondly, if you want to help the show in another way, you can hit up either of the sponsors, Ledn or Nord. Those links are down below. If you really liked what you saw, you're welcome to drop me a tip at my tippin.me page via the Lightning Network. And with that, I'm out, you guys. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you tomorrow for your daily session.